Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair and the audience. Thank you very much for listening in. My name is Nabagala Chimulinashwa. I did a study on economic viability of biogas energy systems in Uganda, a case of households. 94% of the households in Uganda still rely on traditional biomass, such as firewood and charcoal. And the 15% of the people in Uganda have access to clean cooking technologies, such as improved charcoal stoves, LPG, electricity, and less than 1% for biogas. So the less than 1% for biogas is the motivation for my study, whereby it is still low, whereby it is economically viable, and we have a lot of feedstock that is necessary to make to produce biogas. We have a lot of municipal waste. We have cow dung, and which are like very much available and cost effective. But still, the biogas production and people using biogas are very low. So that was the reason and the motivation for my study. So my study, it found out that someone who is using biogas and someone who is using firewood and charcoal, and it concluded that someone who uses biogas is saving more money and is saving the environment as well. It also concluded that we also looked at biogas with solar heating, whereby biogas with solar heating performs better performs better than biogas without solar heating, showing that biogas with solar heating produces more biogas in a day. Thereby, someone who uses biogas with solar heating is producing more biogas in a day and will be able to use that biogas for their household energy demands. That means cooking breakfast, cooking lunch, and dinner. So the study also concluded that biogas is more it's cost friendly and also environmentally friendly to the environment. It generates very few emissions.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Chimuli. So I'll ask Florence and Nanteza. In terms of, you talked about the fact that you have done your research. Florence, it's in communicating the energy transition, and you talked about the fact that you did it in Mukono. Nanteza, you also talked about the fact that you're looking at clean cooking, and then even Ali, I'll add you. You talked about the fact that you did your research specifically in Masindi. So I want you to explain to us, in terms of the impact, what impact have you seen in terms of your study? Maybe tell us the before and the after. Has your research been any impactful to Masindi? Florence, you talked about Mukono, and then even Nantes, I know that you have gone in the different places and been able to sensitize people about clean cooking. So what impact has your study had on those specific communities that you have done the study in? Yes. Nanteza, you can start since you have the microphone.
Thank you, Chair. Mine, actually, to start with, it actually first educated me as well as a researcher, because how I came about this topic, how the topic came about and doing the research about it, it was through a statement from a colleague of mine, a fellow classmate. She's known for clean cooking, Akum. She was actually saying, did you know that we were actually in an energy class, and she said, did you know that you can cook with electricity cheaply, but most Ugandans, you do not know. So through the conversation, I was like, no, I think this is a lie. When you cook with electricity, also my mind, I was like, it is very expensive. That was at the back of my mind. Until when I did the study and realized that it is actually cheaper, but just that Ugandans use other inefficient methods of cooking while using electricity. So having been informed by the study, I went ahead and did the same, disseminating information and awareness to different women and communities about the benefits and advantages of cooking with cleaner fuels as compared to using the other methods of cooking like charcoal. Because one, little did people even know. Do you know that even here in Kampala, you could talk to a group of women. It's not that they are not educated. They are educated, yes, but they could not even be aware that while using a pressure cooker, you can spend about 500, just about 500 Ugandan shillings to cook, for example, fresh beans. But just because they are not aware, this information, they don't have any knowledge about it. So the impact of my research has been mostly is creating awareness about the fact that it is actually cheaper, cost-friendly, time-saving to most women who spend most of their time in their kitchens, taking long hours, like preparing beans. Someone prepares beans for 2 hours with a charcoal stove. But with the pressure cooker, it just takes about 40 minutes, really. And you find that this person does not know. So it has actually been so impactful in terms of behavioral change management.
Okay, just a follow-up question before you get the mic. So we know that, okay, at least majority of the women and men here are working class people. So meaning that you're going to leave home and maybe leave a maid with that clean cooking gadget to use, like the gas and the electric pressure cooker. So of course, I know personally, we have the phobia that when you leave the maid with the gas, you might find the house burnt. Or when you leave them with the electric pressure cooker, you will find the house in trouble. So I know you have experienced that in the field. What are some of the things that you have, or solutions that you have provided in terms of some of the different phobias that Ugandans have in terms of using the electricity to cook and all that?
Demonstration campaigns, number one. At least that one I've done, because most Ugandans fear to use that device for cooking because of the safety measures. The fear that maybe while cooking, the things will spill over and burn maybe the person using it. But once you demonstrate to someone how to use it, that same person, mother or father, will pass on the same communication or information to the person in charge of that device in their homes.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, Madam Florence.
Thank you so much. My study is at the pilot level, but it has been very impactful. I've been able to work with 5 parishes in Mukono and a total of 687 household heads. We have worked together since May to date. We went in the pre. We took 1 month. We went back in the post collecting data. We have worked with the providers of low carbon energy solutions. For example, Up Energy, their pressure cookers. We take them to the communities. We've taught people about energy saving stoves, how they use them, all these households. During these sessions, we were able to sell, in the pre, we sold over 386 energy cooking stoves. We taught households how to make their own briquettes, decarbonizing without using charcoal dust, and non-carbonized charcoal briquettes, whereby we just use a binder and press our waste. My study gave birth to my current company, Timberlake Eco Solutions. Even though it is still at the pilot level, it also gave birth to a funding that led to the foundation of the Leapfrog Foundation to transition Mityana, and Mityana specifically Butebi landing site and Reso community to low carbon energy solutions. To mention but a few, I have had opportunities. I'm working on a project with, I was invited in NEMA to work with the NEMA team on creating awareness using the findings on the models I've used in my study. So to mention but a few, even though my study is still at a pilot level, it has been impactful I've been to ministries, I've talked to providers, I've been to CRIC, and I believe what my colleague here was saying, that dissemination and awareness, actually she's talking about transition communication. People have come to appreciate. When I just started my study, I remember being around energy students and they used to call me transition communication. This is the girl doing communication, yes. The first time they said, what is this communication saying? Because at that time people thought when we talk about energy, we should talk about technologies, we should talk.
So it would be very hard to establish or to come up with a strategy that would shift a household from a very low energy access to a high energy access. You're supposed to move a step by step. Then to the private sector, in my policy recommendations, we discover that there should be subsidized, especially for renewable energy, to add on the electricity supply or the grid supply, as this would reduce on the costs, the upfront costs that the household in Masindi district were facing, the problem of affordability. So introducing the renewable energy solutions would maybe reduce on these costs, and it is a potential for the private sector to invest in the renewable energies.
Okay, thank you. So this one will go to Ms. Chimuli and yes, and Namono. So you talked about the biogas, and we know that biogas is an opportunity for the energy transition. So in terms of your study specifically, what opportunities does it provide for the country to move from the traditional to the biogas and all the other modern energy access?
On the demand side, recommendations I'll give on the demand side. On the demand side, just to increase the demand, there's need for campaigns, awareness campaigns, and training sessions, whereby the local organizations or local communities can carry out these training sessions in such areas of the household so that they can tell them how to use the biogas, and also inform them that biogas is economically viable and affordable, and you can use it at home with just a little bit of initial costs. And then from the supply side, there is need for the government to come in to subsidize the supply side so that they can be able to give out the biogas systems to the households, but at a limited, not a high amount, but a reasonable amount, so that it can be acquired by the households and also not damage the supply side. For the supply side, they need also that foundation from the government in terms of taxation. They need to give some subsidies on the taxation side so that people who are supplying the biogas systems are able to, they're not harmed in any way on their supply production side.
Okay, thank you. Maureen?
Okay, so about mini grids providing access to electricity, actually the study concluded that over 86% of the community members had access to electricity. This is after when the project was implemented. Before the project being implemented, this is a region that didn't have electricity, and community members were basically relying on solar home systems and turnovers, etc. So when this project came in, it brought access to electricity. One, because connection was quite easy. You would get connected the same day you asked to be connected. The fee wasn't that much. It was around 45,000 Ugandan shillings. And this is one of the positive comments that the community was giving, that they were so surprised that they would get easy connection from the mini-grid developer. This access to electricity enabled or influenced a lot of startups. Because these people didn't have electricity at first, they would travel long distances to the nearby towns which had electricity for services like printing, like cold drinks, any business that uses electricity. They would rely on them for these services. But now when the electricity came, they would do all these businesses in their villages. So that was a positive, and we see that access plays an important part as far as electricity demand is concerned. So in conclusion, we see that these mini-grids have that transformative potential as far as rural electrification is concerned. And the solution to the struggling with demand is now PUE, productive use of energy, was considered as an enabler to stimulate demand or to grow the electricity demand. So here we had a lot of businesses starting up, and this mini-grid was able to rely on the demand from the businesses. Also, the at household level, of course, because we had an entity that was providing equipment which were solar compatible, like refrigerators, electric pressure cookers, salon equipment. So this also eased the transition. Like, people were able to use now electricity because they knew now the use of electricity, and they even had the equipment to use electricity. About energy transition, this mini grid was a solar mini grid, 40 kilowatt mini grid. So I think it was already there as far as energy transition is concerned, purely using solar. But now a problem came in with the reliability of the electricity, because now when it rains, it is November, it rains, the cloud cover is not there. So the demand is there, and now electricity is not enough for the people. So that was the major challenge raised by the community members, but electricity access, they were good to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll take some questions from the audience, maybe 3 questions, and then we can, yes. Who can help me move the mic? I'll start with the gentleman here, and then the next. Please be direct to your question.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Chironda Ibrahim, a graduate engineer. Most of the panelists have been directing this to, they were recommending that the government should subsidize some of these things. Well, I am in support of that. However, we're looking at questions like, are the people ready for this? Don't people need sensitization first? Because when you look at given areas like Gulu, where I have been, they have connected the 600 megawatt power plant. However, the people are still using solar, yet that the electricity is just nearby. When you look at the people of Kasana, they have a Simba bridge and UEGCL connected power around that area. But most of the people are not using the electricity. The government took its time to subsidize on the gas cylinders. Which people are taking which people are using them now? Are they really, could say, the cylinders, that are we able to sustain them? Like, are people able to pay for each time to refill? Thank you so much.
So was your question directed to anyone specific, or?
That goes to the Madam Miss Chimuli and the panelist dealing with the policy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. So I think I have a question for each of the panelists. I will start with Ms. Chimuli. So how do you measure the environmental and social impacts of energy access programs on local ecosystems, and what strategies do you use to mitigate potential negative effects of these innovations? And then to Mrs. Nanteza, given the unique energy demands in different regions, how do you ensure that technology solutions for mini grids and clean cooking are adaptable to diverse environments and climates? Then to Ms. Florence, what role do you see for policy and government incentives in accelerating the deployment of mini grids and clean cooking solutions? Are there examples of regulatory best practices that could be replicated globally and nationally? Then to Mr. Kasaja, mini grids are often cited in as effective solutions for rural electrification, but what are the long-term maintenance and financial sustainability challenges you have observed? And also, how can these be addressed to avoid stranded uses of energy in the societies that you are able to do your research in? And then lastly to Mrs. Maureen, in how can the governments balance a drive towards renewable energy with existing infrastructure, especially in countries where liquid petroleum gas is still a major source of energy and employment?
Okay, two more questions.
Thank you, panelists. You have done great presentations that are very insightful. Mine goes to the 4 panelists, 4 out of the 5 panelists. So the first one is to Maureen about the solar mini grids in Mukono. From the entire study, what was exciting or what was actually disappointing from the entire project of scaling up, improving their economic well-being, etc. What was exciting or what was annoying from your key findings? My next question goes to Kasaija, our recent graduate to be. In your insights of your recent study that you defended, you mentioned about a concept of multi-tier energy access. Me from an accounting background, how can you simplify that to me? What are the multiple tiers of energy access within households? I would want to know more and in the simplest form possible.
Okay, there are 2 more ladies, so let them also get an opportunity to ask. Please, let them also get an opportunity to ask as well. I will cut your questions, unfortunately. Let the other 2 get an opportunity to ask as well.
Yeah, thank you. I have just one question for, I think, the gentleman, Ali. You say you mapped energy access. I'd like to know the tools you used. Was it a GIS mapping exercise or a qualitative mapping exercise? And when you were classifying these levels, you mentioned that 70% of that district didn't have access. Was it truly zero at tier 0 or tier 3, tier 4? I would like to know more about that. And
okay,
then
I'm cutting you off.
Yeah,
just
still there on cost.
He will
Did you
not
cost
answer
that
all
level?
of them.
Yeah, I'm asking him, so we'll catch up later.
Yes, maybe you can catch up later. One more question.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator.
Yes.
I have 2 questions, one for Madam Florence. I understand you've been training people on briquettes. Huh? Are there any particular briquettes that you really are advising on people that are safe and probably with low emissions? And which materials are those that you're using to train them? Madam Nazua, we know electricity is not reliable, and we are promoting use of e-cooking stoves. What advice are you giving these people just in case of such a scenario where electricity has just gone probably in the middle of preparing a meal? What should people go for immediately? Thank you.
Okay, so the panelists, as you answer your questions, you'll also give your closing remarks. And yeah, so let me start.
First.
You're asking a question? No, I'm asking. Okay. So let's start with Maureen.
Audience, thank you for the questions. I think I'll take them in that order that I received them. Sustainability of mini-grids. This particular mini-grid was intended to create access to electricity because this was a village that didn't have access to electricity. So the way it was implemented, it was we create access to electricity. We also grow demand for this electricity. And afterwards, we allow the integration of the main grid or the national grid. So actually, right now, that village is now being served by the national grid because electricity, the intention of the project was achieved, access was done, and also electricity demand was grown. Then after the utility or the mini-grid developer, which was Equatorial Power, handed over to Wumeme. So right now it is Wumeme running the community is the one supplying electricity. So when you ask about sustainability, this was just a pilot study. So being that Wumeme is now in charge, we believe that it is electricity from the grid is more sustainable because they have the equipment and they do the maintenance, repairs, etc.
Okay, and your closing remarks?
I still have some questions.
Yeah, you still have. Okay.
Oil versus mini grids. A mini grid is a decentralized system. So mini grids can be both solar and electricity. So about our oil coming in, of course, when the mini grid is not reliable, we shall now resort into generators, and generators are using the oil. So our oil is not going to be stranded. Lastly, what was exciting or annoying from the project? What was exciting is the easy connection, because within 2 months, they had exceeded the target. The target was 360, but within 2 months, the numbers were overwhelming. So they even exceeded their target. So that was so exciting because they were able to bring access very fast. What was annoying, of course, mini grids are not reliable, but I guess solutions will be found out anytime soon. Of course, we shall now be investing in batteries or energy storage, and maybe having a two-way system, having solar mixed with hydro or solar mixed with generators that can solve the solution. Closing remarks, thank you so much for being in this session and for all the comments raised. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will start with a comment made by the gentleman about sensitization. Yes, it is very important. I also did recommend creating awareness among my recommendation. In the analysis, we also discovered that the household that had a potential...
Sorry to interrupt. Panelists, please summarize.
Right.
Yeah.
So the household that had a potential to access or to use the energy efficient technologies like the LPG and the technology that are supported by electricity, we are still using the traditional biomass together with the efficient technology. So awareness is needed to be created, or education program should be extended to these rural communities to educate them about the effect of using biomass on health and the community. So I recommended that in my study. Then the gentleman asked about mini-grid.
Ali,
I think that question was directed to
don't
her.
answer.
I've not
Please
forgotten.
don't answer all the questions.
Then the lady behind Dr.
Ali,
Maria.
please don't answer all the questions. Just just give a general thing,
All right.
answer, and then
I used
you will
a
meet them after.
quantitative, it was quantitative. There are guidelines that were established by SMAP, which is the energy SMAP, together in collaboration with the World Bank, that are supposed to be followed, especially in defining this framework. So there are guidelines that I followed for both lighting, determining the tires for lighting, and also determining the tires for cooking or heating. They are different. There is a guideline that we follow. Thank you so much for listening to me and giving me this opportunity to present my research findings to you.
Thank you so much. What role do you see for government? Government should empower people at grassroots levels to disseminate information, other than funding a lot of in-house conferences and where people already know, meet, and they get to know more and more, ignoring people out there. Particular briquettes, carbonized briquettes, which do not use charcoal, are better, where you have a carbonizer stove, non-carbonized briquettes, where you get out the biochar and you use it for cell restoration. Thank you so much for being part of this session. I'm humbled by the opportunity to present my pilot research findings so far. Thank you.
Thank you. The question was about what advice would you give to maybe someone who's in the middle of cooking and there is a power blackout? I think when we recommend that people should use electricity for cooking, we should also consider that there is that fuel stacking model of cooking, whereby you don't rely on just one particular fuel, but you can have your electric pressure cooker besides maybe biogas, LPG, so that you can easily switch between the different cooking options which are cleaner. Thank you so much for listening.
My question was on sensitization. Are we ready? In my recommendations, I recommended awareness campaigns and training sessions for people to use biogas systems. Yes, I feel like people are ready, but they're not aware. So awareness campaigns can help people to get aware, and then sensitization, and then subsidization can come in. Then for the environmental and negative effects, biogas is environmentally friendly, and it has very, at least I know none of the biogas effects, negative effects of it. Well, it has positive effects, whereby the fermentation slurry that has been used after that can be used for agricultural basis as for fertilization. Thank you very much for listening to me. I submit.
Thank you so much, panelists and the audience. You can give yourselves a hand clap for being a very good audience. I apologize for cutting you short, but the panelists are going to be here for the next 5 minutes. You can interact with them. The announcement is that the closing session has already started up. So whoever is here, as soon as we are done, you can please proceed and go up into the main hall for the closing session. Thank you so much for attending.